The city of Mountain.
Can you start over?
And sound spontaneous.
Okay, now you go.
Starting over. Recently, regional and local elected and appointed bodies have been subjected to disruptive racist verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public comments. The city of Mountain View is fully committed to racial, religious, and cultural equity and justice as we strive to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all. This advisory body welcomes respectful and non-threatening public comments regarding matters for which the advisory body has jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise, pursuant to the Council Code of Conduct and the Government Code, may be grounds for immediately terminating a speaker's comment period. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Now I will ask the library director to proceed with roll call. Oh, I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Now I will ask the library director to proceed with roll call.
Chair Eric Nerlich,
Here.
Vice Chair Kristen Higaki,
Here.
Member Kuldeep Bambasta,
Here.
Member Sharon Sue, Board Member Nick Wolfo.
Present. With that, we move on to minutes approval. Minutes for the June 17th, 2024 meeting have been delivered to board members. If there are no corrections or additions, a motion is in order to approve these minutes. Would any member of the public on the line or in person like to provide comment on an item on the minutes approval? If you're online, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. The library director will display the timer on the screen. Is there anybody online?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Oh, I take it back. Sorry, fake comment.
Okay.
To approve the minutes.
Should we have a second, then you take the vote?
I will take. Okay. Chair Eric Nerlich,
Approved.
Vice Chair Kristen Higaki, Board Member Kuldeep Bambasta, Board Member Sharon Sue, Board Member Nicole Votes.
With that, we move on to oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. If there appears to be a large number of speakers, speaking time may be reduced to no less than 1.5 minutes. State law prohibits the board from acting on non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line or in person like to provide comment on non-agenda items? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or raise your hand. Okay. Moving on. There are no donations, presentations, or unfinished business. So we move on to the new business of the fiscal year 2023-24, fiscal year 2024-25, performance measures and year in review. I presume Tracy will lead us in a discussion of.
Documents out.
Plugging.
I think you're connected.
Yeah. I get over.
Your mouse.
The mouse is on the TV.
Your mouse is on the TV, but not on the screen.
Strange.
Maybe your screen is extended. Tracy.
Yeah, I think the extent you might have to brag when we're.
yours and just make sure. Okay, what do I have to change on
See,
here?
like the file, because it's showing
On the
your
website. Just on the website. Sorry, guys. This has not happened before.
You want to share this?
Yeah.
So, I think
Thanks, Melvin.
That's it. Keep changing.
keep changing.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, Melvin. Okay, thanks for your patience. Okay, I wanted to start first, and I can send you all the link, but just in case you haven't gone to the city's budget document, this is how to get there. On our city, the new website departments, and it's under finance. And then on the left, budget. Current city budget. 24-25 budget. And then recommended budget document. And this is a huge document, and go into the table of contents, and we have a print copy that
If you want to hit somebody over the head with it.
it's quite big.
Most foul.
And then the table of contents, it has the city org chart, the charters, which the board is one of the 4 that are part of the charter. And then I did want, I think I mentioned this when we talked about the budget back in May, at the May meeting. The one nice thing about the city of Mountain View is the revenue. There's a variety of revenue. The city owns property and taxes, and then the business tax that was approved a couple years ago. But there's all kinds of great information. Obviously, you all are residents. But in the table of contents also has all of the departments, and I'm going to jump to the library, which if you read it online, if you click on any section, it'll jump you right there. So I'm going to click on library. This has our old org chart. Oh no, it does have the new one. So it has our organizational chart. And then I won't go through this. I can send you all the link. But it has our mission statement, our department interview, all of the departments, as I mentioned this year. A consultant worked with all the departments to update every department's performance measures, which are in your packet that we'll talk about, but it just talks about that acknowledgement, and that the budget documents going further will have the new ones. And then it has all of our functions. I think I've gone over this with all of you at your orientation into being on the board. But for example, providing information for borrowing library materials and using all the library services and programs, and then the measurement which it's attached to. And then if anyone reads these, has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to meet individually if you have any more questions. And it has our accomplishments. Obviously, one of our largest this past fiscal year was the unveiling of the new all-electric bookmobile. Some of you were at the unveiling in January. Our stipend program for the Career Online High School, partnerships for after-school programs, for library card drive, our History Center refresh, which we showed you at one of our previous last meetings. So this has, and all of these were updated to you all throughout in the director's reports. So we just compiled this, all the departments compile this every year and put in the budget document. We launched a new online public catalog this fiscal year. It seems years ago, but it was just this past year. We acknowledge our summer reading program participation, and then our grants, and then our initiatives, our major projects for this year. We've adjusted these somewhat. We probably will postpone our library self-checkout stations. We're meeting with our vendors. We just had our vendor come out and did 2 days worth of upgrading to our automatic material sorting system. So they've been working okay through the last several years. So we may postpone that. We are updating our bookmobile stops, and I'll go over that in the director's report. And then one of the goals for the year that the city council has asked departments to look at continuous improvements and how processes both internally, externally, involving the public or internal, which we've talked about, the shelf ready, having our vendor do more processing and cataloging of materials to have it delivered ready to go on the shelves. That project for this year. And then we have a different document, but all the budget, the entire budget document includes performance workload measures for all of the departments. So if you're interested in police or fire or housing department, all of the departments have this throughout the document. So if you're interested in other departments. And then I won't read this. This has to do with our new performance workload. So I just wanted to say this is all in the budget, along with the summary of positions, differences going back a few years, our budget, which we want to increase every year with things we need. So I won't go through this as much today, but if anyone has specific questions, please feel free to reach out. And then we just break it down by division and what the main goals of the division are. This is also geared to the public, for the community to look at all the departments if they want to see what they're all engaged in. And this we do every year in the budget. And this just shows what we asked for in the budget, which we've updated the board on at one of our past meetings. But the customized library services is the shelf ready materials. And then we asked for funding for LinkedIn and Coursera. These were the two items that the state library wasn't providing anymore for public libraries. And then we're continuing the limited period of the lead security services guard, as well as security services. And then one item that was omitted was we did get a limited period half-time library assistant in the budget as well. Oh, it's actually here, the next page, sorry. So this document just goes through, we've done a lot of reorging. So you have the footnotes in the last few years and we've moved things in the budget. A lot of departments in their divisions do very different things. They have revenue coming in. Ours pretty much isn't the case. So we've been moving a lot of items to admin budget line, just to make it easier for our analysts to track our budget. So it just makes it easier and internally.
Can I ask a dumb question here?
No dumb questions. There are no dumb questions.
Looking at, so on this page of the budget, like I can see the numbers go up quite significantly, 22, 23, and 23, 24, especially for salaries. But when I look at the page before, it's like the number of people, employees doesn't change that much. So
Yeah.
what happened?
This is because this is in the division summary.
Mhm.
So we move people and so their salary comes with it.
Okay,
And that's why, see, how this is 15.75
Yeah.
and this is just 7. It's because we combined one division, and went down from 3 to 2 from last year to this year. So some of the staff went to one division, some went to the other. To look at the overall library, if you look at even administration as a division.
yeah, I was looking at the whole library.
Oh, the whole library. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like 44.5 to 45, and if you scroll down just a little bit there on that page, the salaries go from like 1.18 to 1.4. So like the total expenditures are going up by like 1.5, 1.6 million between the left and the middle column. If you look at the total expenditures,
Expenditure
Right
summary first row.
yeah, that one.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait, it went up $1 million, $1.5 million. And so I'm like, wait, what am I missing? I guess a lot of them is customer experience and technology.
This may have included also the bookmobile, the purchase of, they include capital outlay and
Well,
CIP.
it's the next where your cursor is right now, like the expenditure summary is broken into salaries, wages, and benefits, and then capital
I
outlay.
forgot. Oh, okay, capital outlay, supplies.
And so there on that one, the salaries, wages, and benefits goes up like 1.6 million. And that's why I'm like, wait, the number of people didn't go up. So like, what is?
Right.
So that may just be a mistake in the numbers, but I just was like, it caught my attention.
0.3 to 8. Let's look at 44 point to 45. That is interesting. It only went up
Half a person.
the person from 22, 3. I wonder if that,
If you look at the salary, if you go down to the salary, wages, and benefits line, that line is like goes up a lot in dollar numbers. So there may be some reclassification or something.
question.
Okay, we don't have to track it down now, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
I believe it's not including in here the limited period because we have
So you brought people on halfway through the year or something like that.
the limited period security services guard, which isn't in here, and the
Oh yeah. Mhm.
and the wages, and I trying to think where our security company is probably in services. That is interesting, but the one limited period position wouldn't be that much.
I'm also getting paid $1 million, which if so,
Yeah,
I want
that's
to get a
it.
security guard.
I would, right? Yeah, exactly. I'll have to find out. That's a good observation.
Yeah, it's
Why that
it's
jump?
hard to tell from this. I think trace through the numbers, but
Yeah, it would have for you. Somebody would have to go look at the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That might be a question for your analyst to say like.
Yeah. Yeah.
A whole bunch of stars though, right? Like footnotes, like
Yeah.
there's not half,
Yeah,
0.25,
I read through them.
But
But $1 million, yeah.
But like,
A lot.
yeah. Anyway, I don't want to
Yeah.
sidetrack.
No, thank you though. I will make a note and we'll look at that and let the board know too, because that's interesting. Yeah, our analysts will be able to find out.
I wondered, what happens to the allocated salary for positions that we were unable to fill versus?
Yeah, they didn't choose this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that was actual versus adopted and adopted.
Oh, that's
So if you
right.
have like
This is-
6 people
yeah.
that weren't hired.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
difference is what was
that would
spent.
be,
I see. That's probably the difference.
yeah,
To see that adopted is higher than the
Yeah.
actual.
yeah,
So maybe that's.
That makes
so
sense.
You have a bunch of open positions,
Yeah.
right? So,
that could be it.
okay, thank you for.
Yeah, no, thanks
Good
everyone. It
observation.
took all of us to, to figure that out. The more vacancies you have, because this is the actual budget. Any other questions? I know I went through this rather quickly. And I'll pull up now.
I told you the actual. That's
this
the year
year.
before, right? The actual is for 22-23, and adopted is 23-24.
Yeah,
They have the actuals, yeah.
they don't have the actuals come out. I actually asked the finance director. It goes to council, I believe in September, the actual, and then it'll be printed. Because this is the recommended, and then once they do the fiscal close at the end of June, they start July, finish it in August, and then the actuals will come out. It'll be a new binder, it'll be a new link on the website since this was recommended. And I can send everyone the links once the adoption comes out. Or the final.
I did have some questions about connected to the statistic about the average number of days between receipt of new materials and then
Yeah,
needed processing.
I'm gonna pull up this year's performance. This was the document that was sent in your packet. And I'll talk about that, Nicole, and I may cover it, but feel free to ask. So these are performance measures with our previous performance, our actual visits. Our target was about 350. It's less than 6,000 less. So we don't feel any concern there. I think a lot of it is our increase in electronic resources. I actually thought this would be just as much. I think 22-23 was a huge jump. Obviously 21-22 to 22-23 was a huge jump. I think 22-23 we broke a lot of records for performance measures. It was still post-pandemic where I think people were looking and coming places, doing things. Our visits stayed, it dropped from, a little bit, but I don't think it's a concerning number. We're still pretty busy with over almost 1,000 people a day coming in. So it's still a pretty busy library. Our total circulation was actually higher than last fiscal year. If you look at our physical items, even more so, and electronic items bumped up over 50,000. So I think a lot of people are really using our online resources. We added a couple additional that the state had given us. Coursera, LinkedIn were huge increase. I think, what was the percentage, Melvin, that it went up like 60-some%?
For database, you see on the year-end review that there's like a 65% increase in the database use. And what drove it was actually our skill building resources. And two of that is the one that we recommended and got adopted by council to get like more funding. The LinkedIn Learning and Coursera. These are part of like those skill building resources that are going to be sunset by the state library in September, but we're gonna continue with LinkedIn Learning and Coursera. The numbers really jump with those two, about like 15,000. That's why it's a 65% increase.
And our total physical items, about 60% of the physical items that are circulating are children's materials. So anecdotally, every morning I kind of scan the whole shelf to just see what people are checking out. And it's just stacks and stacks of kids' books, you know, a lot of other things as well. But
If you're a little bit behind somebody checking them in.
yeah.
Stack of 20 books going
Yeah.
down. It's like, oh, wow.
It's electronic increase, you know, the ebooks, Hoopla, Overdrive, the Libby app are so easy to use, and our staff are really good at looking at the holds and purchasing additional copies when the holds get up. I think there was a novel, I was number 72. And I thought, oh, maybe by Christmas I'll be able to read it. And it kept going down, and it said, you know, your library ordered more copies, and it was less than a month, I think, that it eventually. So, um, so, you know, we try to keep up with the high holds.
And with children's books, is it safe to assume that because they're typically briefer, that there's faster turnover?
Those who have kids, Sharon.
I think we can hold on to a pile for a very long time.
There's no automatic renewal site. We have some books that have stayed in our house long enough for them to be lost and then pay for them to be replaced, but that's a different problem.
I think it's just, yeah, we have just a lot of users, families using our materials. And with the 100 items you could check out when we do the class visits, and they always say, how many books do you think you can check out? And the kids, 5, 10, more, 20. And it's like 100. They're like, what? So I think it's all of that of, you know, our end of summer dance party, we had over 300 people come, and a lot of them came in and got books before and after. So I think it's just families are coming, and caregivers to check out material. So the usage, I think and what I'm hearing every time I was with my niece who was coloring, and and had books, and the person next to me said, but then a device, you know, because she's young. So I think it's also the kids not being on their devices, adults getting more familiar with devices as they're older and so forth. You can adjust the font size and so forth. So I think it's a variety.
How do some of these numbers affect the budgets for each department?
Yeah.
The adult services might have an increased digital budget.
Yeah, so every year, and what we did around April to work at this fiscal year budget is we look at all that data and we say, well, if kids materials, it's 60% plus that are checking out. Do we need to add more funds, move more funds from adult to youth? And then do we need to ask for more funds in the budget for our overall material budget, which we've asked for almost every year? We've asked for additional budget for materials. A couple years ago, when the surge of ebooks, we asked for more, I think it was 20 or 30 more for ebooks. And then last year we asked for the money for Coursera and LinkedIn because they were high usage, and the state library, you know, wasn't going to be able to fund it. And we said, look, this really gets used because some databases are fantastic and libraries market them, and people just, for whatever reason, just it doesn't click with them. But those two were definitely ones that New York Times Magazine, one of our staff sends Melvin and I every month the highest what are the highest usage. Those are the New York Times cooking magazines and New York Times Online are one of the highest. But we look at all that data and, we look at the end of the year and then I'm already starting preparing for next year's budget requests because they're due in December. So we'll look at all of that. For instance, during the pandemic, we moved a majority of our funds to electronic when people couldn't come in the building. And then we slowly reallocated as people were able to come. But yeah, we were continually looking at it. And the staff do the stats monthly and submit. So I try to look every month and see where is the trend going? Is there an anomaly? And then as you get closer to the end, what's the overall trend going? And we have some donation funds that will, if we need to pull from towards the end to help with the high holds and things like that, we do. So it's definitely always looking and trying to allocate where things are going. And then you also have to consider some of maybe people aren't checking out some of the English literature books, like the classics, but we are a library. We probably need to have Huckleberry Finn or, some of the classics, even though, because we look at circulation, if things aren't checking out, there's only so much space. We have to take something out for, every book, every material has to earn its shelf space. So we look at those stats and have to balance what we should have, a nice even mix. So,
So taking not usually happening to the Friends of the Library sales.
we try to even it out to not bombard them with too much before their sale. So we try to even things out and give them throughout so that, they're not bombarded. But once in a while, if it's before the sale, it's pretty much even. We try to even it out. So,
And this may not be realistic, but some library systems, especially larger ones with universities, they sometimes put books on reserve. So they're not technically on a shelf, but you can request it and it comes from a warehouse. I'm assuming that that's maybe not possible for us.
These actually high in the sky, a lot of academic libraries, because for instance, when I was in Sonoma County, Sonoma State cleared out a whole floor for makerspace and for seating, but they have a warehouse. They actually have their books stored in a system. And when you request it, there's a conveyor belt it'll pick it up. Some other academic libraries have warehouses off campus that they rent. We've talked about that because some days we're like, we need more tables, but we can't take out all the books. And Melvin and I have talked about where can we put them in the garage? We need a basement or some, a big
space.
Big space. So that could happen. But most public libraries unfortunately don't have that, where campuses, sometimes have better storage areas where that could happen. But some academic libraries, you won't be able to get the book for a couple of days because someone has to go get it, bring it back, depending on, I don't know if you all remember the stacks that you cranked and they were, the compact shelving. I actually asked about that and it's very expensive. Never know.
I had a near miss in one of those. It was like an Indiana Jones moment where I had to get out of the.
You're getting squished. Yeah. I worked in an academic library that have one. They're kind of scary in a way because when you're all the way down, you're like, this is a horror movie waiting to be someone gets. But anyway, number of questions asked it's a little lower, but not hugely. And then attendee of programs is pretty much the same. The customers who attend programs who are satisfied is 98%, which is great. And then the number of calendar days between receipt of new item. This was the one that was highest. I think we talked about this at our mid-year in January about this. We had, and it has no reflection on the staff. The staff are doing great. It has to do, we just had people come and go in vacancies. And so we had to train some staff to order, and we trained several staff how to order. And so if orders all of a sudden, and I don't know if it was this past summer or the year before, our vendor was down for about a month. And so they came up online, and then we would receive tons of books at one time. So obviously all of that's being held back. And so if you get, 50 boxes of 50 books each, it's going to take longer. So I know that's happened in the past. I can't remember if that was this fiscal year or last year. It happened in the summer. I remember that. And so what we did in December, we had one of our managers left, and there was some time frame before our manager came on board, and we trained more staff to catalog, to catch up, and so forth. And then the other factor is when books come in, you might get 200 books that come in, and you're cataloging them and processing them. If there are holds, they go to the front. We want to get people who have holds that are waiting for something first. So then everything else kind of goes back. So if you have a lot of materials, it's going to make that number go back. I will say, looking at the carts we have now, we don't have a backlog at all right now. We haven't had one in several months, so I expect this at the mid-year in January to be better. Our one goal of our vendor doing some of this work for us for some of the materials, when that comes in, there's less downloading of the records and processing and cataloging, and it's an efficiency that will hopefully get the materials on the shelf faster. And I think one of you asked about how will you tell if it's working and improving, and that will be, obviously we'll monitor mistakes, and then we'll monitor when we expect the items. Like if we're ordering and we're not getting anything for this extended period of time, we'll know there's something with the vendor that we have to check in. But obviously when you first get this going, you're checking in all the time and getting the kinks worked out. We haven't started this yet. We're currently working with purchasing to review our contract with the vendor, because this was a $40,000 addition to the service. They have to look closely at the contract, review the contract, which hadn't been renewed in a while. Then our attorney's office looks at it. So we haven't started that process yet.
Is it a fair assumption to say line 8 and 9 are linked? Because if you have, 21.6 days, and then that means less new items will be processed, right?
Well, they both have the same footnote, so when they're linked in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 9, this is really, though, it tells you how many, but it's more, I think, correlated to number of items. For me, this is a determination of how many materials we're getting in print. And if this starts going down, which it has, it's because we're maybe getting more items in ebook form.
Oh, I see.
So there's both.
There's more work to process a physical.
Yes. Or in ebook, it's downloaded and the record's already there. It's so quick. So that's more of a reflection of we're spending more on moving more funds from print to ebooks, especially in adult, if nonfiction. And even fiction is starting to go down more. Large type, which used to be, you know, a higher circulation, but I think some people have devices where you can increase the font, like I mentioned. People
Yeah.
like that better rather than, so our large type doesn't circulate as much. Our audiobooks, because people are listening, cars don't have CD players as much now. So that's more to me, what I look at is, you know, the print versus ebooks.
I wanted to ask about the footnote, you know, because we talked last time about the persistence of the
Yeah.
condition and we noticed through the budget, like, I actually don't even know, how many open positions are there right now?
Yeah, so right now, and I was going to update you guys, but I'll update you now. So we have 4 vacant positions. We have in the director's update, Charles Mosnill, one of our librarians, just started last week. We filled our halftime limited period library assistant. She started today. So there are 4. There's 2 in youth. In the youth bookmobile and collections division, and then one and a half time in the our other division. And we held interviews last week, tomorrow, and then next week. So we're hoping, we're crossing our fingers we can. We had a lot of applications. We're getting more applications than we've ever had, I would say, in the last year. Probably in this recruitment, we've received over 100 for the librarian. And last year when we recruited, I don't think we got half that. So we're getting a lot more applications, which is helpful. Yeah. And more people out of state to looking and so forth. We've been marketing and posting on the national, which we typically always do, the National Library Association.
Is the fraction of applications that are from local individuals changing at all?
What would you say? I would
What
say
was the question?
the percentage of the local, like Bay Area
Yeah.
or
Local
Bay Area,
applicants.
are we seeing the number of inquiries for positions from Bay Area library staff changing at all?
Well, if we're getting more out-of-state interest, doesn't that kind of by definition?
I'm not interested in a percentage. I'm interested in an absolute number.
Oh, okay.
Bay
I would
Area,
say
we see
it's
a
mixed,
lot. It's
yeah.
mixed, but we
Yeah.
do get a lot in the Bay Area, I would say.
Yes, because we see applications from like neighboring counties like San Mateo, Santa Clara counties applying for the position. But I would say it's mixed. We get also a lot of like out of state. The last 2 librarians we onboarded, Rick and Charles, are from out of state.
And Anne, our library
Manager is out of state.
With regards to the new materials over there, what are, in your mind, the potential advantages and the potential disadvantages to shifting more of the new material processing to a vendor?
Well, we're starting it as a pilot because, you know, we had, the folks that work for Baker and Taylor, you know, I've known some of them worked in the business for a long time. They have a new CEO. He worked up his way up to the company. They made a lot of changes in their company post-pandemic. We felt good about, you know, we talked to neighboring libraries, pros and cons, etc. So we didn't want to, we did it as a pilot because we didn't want to say we're doing everything and then So the percentage that we're doing with this pilot, with the funding we got, is we want to start out with adult nonfiction and juvenile nonfiction because those are probably, we want to just start with those collections and see how it goes. So we asked for funding for, that would cover, it's not the whole collection, it's probably a third, maybe about a third of the collection. And then depending how it goes with them, this next year, it's in our budget, it's an ongoing. So, and by the time we get it, it's already end of August. By the time we get it up and running, it takes about 6 weeks for, they send some test materials, test downloading, all of that. So I'm thinking hopefully by the end of the year, we get something going. And then from January to June, we could have a good amount to say, okay, it's working really good. And then ask for more budget to do it or shift. But yeah.
What are the primary advantages and the primary disadvantages to
The advantages are for the vendor, they're doing it in mass quantity for so many libraries that they have. It's like the quick part. It's the supplies, the cost of the supplies is cheaper. The stickers, anything you're adding to the book, they get it cheaper than we do. Because they're this huge, they do it for, I think, almost every public library. So, they're training, they have catalogers that are doing this for all libraries. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I haven't been in the warehouse how their workflow is, but you're doing it for Palo Alto, the call numbers, the information that's going into the database is the same. So that's a pro. The con would be similar to us when you have, vacancies or, what if all of a sudden nobody wants to work there anymore and they're behind, or everyone there has COVID and they're behind. So I think the cons are pretty much similar to any business that's
right. I don't mean the advantages and disadvantages for them. I mean the advantages and disadvantages for us.
well, that would be the disadvantage for us. If they didn't have the staffing level that they did, that was one of my first questions was,
So you're worried about substantial
what's your,
delays
what's your staffing
caused by
level?
staffing issues in the company?
I think so.
Mhm.
That's ours here. So any company that has limited staff, ask any fire department or police department. A concern in staffing. That's, the other pros for us to do it is we have always more work than people, and we are getting more requests over and over for us to bring the bookmobile to an event, to a neighborhood. Some of you have neighborhood events. We keep getting requests to bring the bookmobile to more events, and sometimes we have to say no because we don't have the staff. So the more that a pro would be, we send our librarians to events and for programs and to do all the other work.
So I hear that.
That's
So
needed.
The library is doing what only they can do, and this company doing with their
Yeah,
specialization.
yeah. And this has been a best practice in libraries. I honestly, when I came here 6 years ago and we weren't already doing this, most libraries already have had this. It's a best practice in libraries to have these vendors do this work. It's just easier, and most do it because of staffing. We don't have as many staff as we did in 2010. Every year I ask for more staff. We're doing more. And so where can we say, how can we do more with less? What can we have others do this is a best practice that libraries have. It's just a common practice. So,
Is that
That's a
just your
pro.
research, Nicole? Or?
Well, so it's a pilot program, and I think that is 100% the way to go.
yeah,
But I'm interested in how the pilot program is going to be assessed.
yeah.
What are you going to look at?
Yeah, I think you asked this at our last meeting, and I mentioned
Yeah.
that the mistakes, at the beginning, it might be because, we give them, here's our information. Are mistakes coming? Are they missing something? Are they not coming in a timely manner? Those are the majority, because that's the whole point of that. So that's how we'll measure based on mistakes, and usually when this project is implemented, I implemented this in a library 15 years ago. And, it went fine. There were some mistakes at the beginning. There were tweaks. That's typical. But once we got it running, I worked in a library where this doesn't happen here, but I worked in a library that they were 6 months behind, 6 to 8 months behind on processing and cataloging. So you would get holiday books and, they weren't on the shelf till the following year. And, so this is a process improvement that is typical. But we know it, it's a best practice that most libraries use it. But we also wanted to take a more conservative approach and say, let's start it as a pilot so that we can just make sure. We don't want to put, we're doing this and, something happens, but they do this for most public libraries. Does that help?
Oh, yeah, it's all very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm curious if you track like secondary metrics of, let's say, like the average hold time for books or whatever, like is that going down or misses in the catalog, where people are searching for stuff and don't have it? And then also kind of like I guess like I don't know if you call it the checkout rate or whatever of the new books to kind of gauge, like how, if like the circulation could be increased if you had, like the right, like a different set of books.
Turnover.
Oh, yeah.
The turnover.
I think so. Yeah, we do track that. The turnover rate. We have it's called a turnover rate and we do it by Dewey.
Yep.
So it gets really detailed for instance, and it's kind of the opposite. The higher the number, the better the turnover. So games, it's a high turnover. People check it out, but it's also, we don't have that many. So it's a high turnover because people are using games. So that is a high turnover. Example of a low turnover is, I don't want to dog any collection, but
Print magazine.
No,
print magazines. We're going to dog on print magazines because we have Flipster. So print magazines obviously is people aren't checking them out like they used to. So that turnover rate's going to be lower. And then we get this monthly list of turnover rate. And then if it's under a certain percentage, then it says things in this Dewey number should be weeded. For example, maybe math books aren't circulating. Cookbooks circulate quite a bit, and it compares how many, not just the circulation, but how many items are in that collection compared to the entire collection.
And
So
aside
we're
from
that.
printed magazines, I would assume newspapers probably are in the same kind of bucket, so to speak.
Yeah, because they don't check out their library use, but the magazines people could take home. So
Okay, so you can't check
yeah.
out newspapers first.
yeah,
Wasn't sure.
yeah. Probably some of our word languages have a low, they're not being checked out. And we definitely use that to look at, what do we try to buy more of? What do we it kind of gives us a snapshot of what people are using here, and it may change. Like this year, computer books, I think, increased a little. There were a couple that I noticed that were, oh, okay. Like I mentioned, large type, the turnover is in audiobooks. It's such a low turnover rate. And it basically, when I mentioned, we look at that to determine how books earn their shelf space. And so we've talked about, do we need to weed all of the audiobooks or do we might say, well, maybe we'll lessen
So this is like in your Libby catalog for audiobooks, is that?
for the physical ones.
Oh, there's.
There's still physics.
Exactly.
We actually saw physical audiobooks, yes. So like for that, it would be, and we might start out by saying, well, we won't add much to the budget. Let's see the next year or two. But if it continues to keep decreasing, then we've made the decision. And we did this probably 5 years ago with car manuals. And we had a huge section, Nicole remembers, and it was it really what it was.
It was the passing of an era.
It was a passing of an era because the shelf space was huge,
Yeah.
but the turnover rate, it just was not circulating. And we also had the Chilton manuals online, and they were they were big, they were bound, and they were heavy. So, the friends sold a couple. I think they sold some. So we had to determine at that point, okay, and for those, we couldn't just get rid of a few. It was like, well, we're going to eliminate the collection. So physical audiobooks might be the next thing because it's just one of those things that's
Right. I think what I was trying to understand is if we are looking at more signals to see whether or not there's areas where customers are feeling not fulfilled in their journeys, right? Like you mentioned, seeing your weight decrease, which, feels great. But then when you initially did it, like I've done this a bunch of times where I reserved an online book and it says months, right? And so I'm curious whether or not you guys are kind of tracking those kind of things to see whether or not you can improve that area.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do a high holds report is it weekly?
Weekly.
It's weekly to see what's high. And we have, I think it's for print, we try to have at least one copy for every 6 holds.
4 or 5,
4 or 5 holds.
depending on the budget.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my question on the budget here is like, if you see this number grow over time of like, there's a larger percentage of the constituents are waiting, right? Like, is that something that would then be reflected here as an ask to increase?
I will say, I don't know if we added it to our new performance measure.
We did not, but electronic resource materials have always been part of our resource. To answer your question,
Yeah.
so I think the Libby or the new ebook app has improved a lot, and people have embraced it, especially during the COVID. But that's also the tragedy of it. Like, if there's like a popular title, sure enough, there will be 100 people like,
Oh yeah.
placing
I
polls on it.
have seen it.
200, and you're going to be weeks and weeks and weeks, right? So one of the selectors' tasks is to constantly review that and assess it based on their budget, what's left in what they can spend in the year, and add money to buy added copies. So, like what Tracy was describing.
I think her question is like, that's within the budget they already have it.
Yes.
How did they ask for more budget?
They do ask for
Okay.
more budget. So they would come and like Tracy said, we have like sometimes access to grant donations, that comes from like
Yeah.
other
We
organizations.
there was a trust set up about 10 years ago, and it was prior to me, and we get a percentage of the interest every year. And so it's, the last few years, it, was 7,008, 10, 13. I think last year was 13. We dedicate that to High Holds ebooks, that money. So that just goes to High Holds. So that, because like Melvin said, the librarians have their budget to spend. And then, if we get other donations into our grant account, and sometimes the friends will have something extra. So anything we can give, we will. But we do use it for asking at the city manager for more funds, which
So you show them like, hey, this is the
Yeah.
amount of, the average wait time for a.
we haven't asked for particular holds, but we'll ask for like a couple years ago for materials overall. We showed them and asked for, I think it was like 30,000 for more materials.
And aside from Libby, is this also something that you track for things like Hoopla, movies and other things?
Hoopla,
Yes.
TFT,
Because like we get like a monthly report on Hoopla of like, let's say if we budgeted, let's say 10,000 for, not 10,000, 8,000 for a month in Hoopla.
Mhm.
We get like a report that we could see if like people are getting blocked. If that's like increasing, we know that 8,000 would not be enough for the month. And then we look at, maybe we reallocate, like look at like what collections are not circulating as much and can we move money? And we've done that, or we get like, we source grants, we source like donation and to add more money into it, into that platform. We've seen that in, for example, we promote Canopy and then usage is increasing, but the budget is the same. So you have to like reallocate. The same with ebooks. The selectors, the managers, they meet with us or they meet on a regular basis to like reallocate, especially at mid-year if like materials in a certain collection is not circulating as much, can we move some of that money to reduce the wait times in ebooks? Because there's like some threshold that like we wanna achieve like with electronic as well as physical materials in terms of the whole wait times.
And then my other thought was another signal of a miss is when people are searching for something in a catalog and don't have it, right? Because then I end up going to other libraries. So I don't know if you guys also have, like, hey, we.
Searches.
A way to
yeah.
track and analyze the search history.
You don't have to search history of people, but like, you definitely know whether or not you don't have it in your catalog,
Yes.
right? And so I'm also wondering if that's something that you kind of track and like, hey, like we're missing like a large portion of our users wanting to do this because I'm pretty lazy and I don't always file a request to say, hey, get this book, right? I just go and there's a lot of libraries near here. And,
Betrayal.
right? Like, so that was my other.
Aspen has that ability to track. I don't know,
I'm not sure, but
search it.
yeah.
But we could try to,
Other
we allocate a certain amount. We try to purchase everything someone suggests as long as it falls within our collection policy. But that, yeah. And if anyone sees something we should have, please let us know. Because then, yeah, sometimes there was one month a cart from our vendor didn't come or something because part of what the vendor who does the cataloging and processing does, they're looking at, they send our selectors pre-made lists of here's the New York Times, here's the bestsellers coming out in 6 months. So we're trying to order 6 months in advance. especially the high demand authors and so forth. So we meet with the selectors meet with the vendors every so often, because they're trying to improve what the library gets. So there's pre-made carts is what they're called. So it's like, a shopping cart, and then it might be all the award winners in children's or something that, and then it's in a cart and our staff can just go through, yes, I want that, yes, or add, I want 5 copies, 6 copies, or, it's the newest series of a popular author. They'll select. A lot of our selectors know, oh, that'll be high hold. I'll order 4 right at the beginning. Because what we want is to have enough copies when it first comes out so people aren't waiting. So we rely on the vendors to do that for us. And then like Melvin said, Hoopla set up differently because it's like he said, I don't know if you've ever gotten or you've hit your allotment for the month, or at the end of the day, there's a limit of downloads per day, and that's just how they do their system. So we, like Melvin said, we monitor that and we say, because when we first got it, we didn't have that big of a budget and it was super popular, and we got a lot of calls saying, what does this mean? I can't
Spending limit.
the spending limit. Your library has reached its spending limit for the day. Try again tomorrow. And then we would tell people, well, if you're up at midnight, it's over at midnight. This was when we first got it, and it was so popular. I remember hearing, it was like I think it was when I first got here, and we were like, we need more money for Hoopla. We need more money for Hoopla. So we asked for more money the next year to put, because we didn't know it was going to be that popular. So, and it was. And so Canopy and Hoopla have the same way set up for usage and payment. So yeah, we're looking at it constantly. It's a dance of what are people going to like, whether people,
And
all of that.
regarding your question, that's why I used to selecting titles is actually fun. Like what Tracy has said, you get like a card of books titles. You'll get like 3 reviews. You'll say this will be high holds, and then it's not flying off the shelves. And an obscure title, because like a celebrity is reading it, becomes suddenly like everyone's like, and of course you did not buy it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
author
like
is
if
not
it's on
known.
Oprah's
So
list or something.
part of that's your training as a librarian, but there's also a part of like a lot of like guesswork, because like it's the same with like any TV or movie that's promoted. Like it can be like a big budget, but like people are not watching it, or not reading it. But like here's this obscure title or obscure author, and everyone wants to read it, and the selector did not buy it. So it's constantly like that. So we rely from suggestions from the public, not only the professional curated reviews to inform the material selection that we have. But it's fun, and it's actually very fun. Like,
Or a movie comes out with a big celebrity and it's based on a book.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone
Yes,
wants
yes.
the book, and we're like, we have one copy. And yeah.
that actually happened to like Andy Weir's
Oh,
novel. It came out, it was like relatively successful, and then it ended. Then a movie was made, so you have to like buy new copies for that, because we were already like removed it from the.
Yeah, I'm reminiscing, but I don't know if any of you remember, this was decades ago, the book The Secret. And it came out, I don't know if I was selecting at the time. I don't even know if we bought the book, but then it became this huge thing and everyone was wanting it. And so we ended up buying a bunch of copies because it had high holds. But yeah, it's fun.
Yes.
You're always having to look and see, and you never know. Sometimes you anticipate certain things, and then, but it's work too. It's looking at all of this data. We're constantly looking at it and trying to predict, trying to see what people are, it's kind of like with programs when our staff presented about programs, I think someone asked similarly, how do you know? Sometimes you just have to try things and you think it'll be high attendance and then it's low, or you think, no, it's going to come to this and then there's 50 people.
Yeah, I think I may have inquired about that
Yeah,
in particular.
yeah.
I remember that
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah. So it's similar.
What is the rate of change for the online New York Times subscription of the daily paper? How does that been varying with time?
The print,
No, the online.
the online, the usage,
How many, the number of requests per day you're getting for a certificate code in order to have the paper?
it's high. Let me see if I can pull it. One of us can pull it up real quick because I know it's one of the top 5 usage. I should do that. No, I'll have Melvin look. Because we do track that. Because that is provided by the state, so we have to provide our statistics on that. So, you know, they determine what they buy for public libraries based on usage as well. We're grateful they're so purchasing.
I think that the typical electronic reader of the Times skews to an older population than the typical online reader of ebooks. So it's a somewhat independent data point.
Yeah.
So, last year's numbers in terms of sessions, we have a total number of like 7,104.
That's all.
Yes. This is what we're reporting sessions.
It's like each session is like one daily checkout.
Yeah.
Really? Could you tell me the number again? Maybe I misheard.
7,104.
7,000? Is it only 20 a day?
It looks like it's about 540 to about 600 plus per month.
So 20 a day.
Yeah, wow, that is lower than I thought it was.
It became lower because the state changed it. It used to be per redemption. You redeem like a code every day, but now you redeem a code and you could use it for 3 days. And,
Oh,
and
so that's
Oh.
that's the 3-day.
yes,
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So factor 3.
There's a mechanism change.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this existed until I was reading the library update. So now, like, wait, why do I have a subscription?
Yeah.
Why am I paying for this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they probably got complaints about having the code, do the code every day, and there was probably some agreement between their contract and if I had to guess, between the New York Times and the state. So they probably negotiated to 3 days as something.
Thanks, Mom.
okay.
And then jumping to our new measures. Some are similar. This is in everyone's budget, in their new performance. And then what the consultant did was determine each performance measure, if it was performance, informational, or workload. And part of that was, for instance, if total circulation keeps increasing, it's for us to help justify when we ask for more funding. You know, say total circulation doubled. We could say, look, this is more work for the staff. They're shelving, they're checking in. It's so part of the redo of the performance measures was to look at that. So it could be tracked when needed. Library programs offered, they suggested we write how many programs were related to health and wellness, how many were related to authors, childhood literacy. This is just for us to look at. It might determine, you know, if one number is huge, maybe we do more. That's what people are interested in. It was something that they recommended we put in there to capture, especially some of these categories are related to city council goals and so forth. Sustainability is one of the goals of city council. So it can show, look, we're doing this many programs per year related. Number of new items received and put into circulation within 10 days. This one we talked about, I think this is the one that received and put into circulation. So this typically will be 100% because we have the self-check, that we have the check-in machines, as well as this that are available for checkout within a business day. Typically, if a book is checked in, it's available right away. So if someone's in the catalog and they don't see it on the shelf, they might come downstairs. It might still be on a cart ready to be put on the shelf. But chances are would be 100%, except in the chance maybe our machines are down and we're doing everything manually and we haven't checked something in yet. But we were recommended to keep this. Library card holders.
Sorry, on row 5, I'm
Uh-huh.
curious, like I'm looking at the previous metric was like average number of calendar days between receipt of new item and availability to checkout. And now it's number of new items received and percent put into circulation. So instead of like the average time is now percent getting in out within 10 days. So was there like why change that? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think our consultant, he was big on percentages, I believe.
Okay.
So, we talked about, the days and he said, well, what would be an average time frame? And we said 10.
Right. That was your goal last year.
Yeah,
So
which was our metric. So he just said, okay, percentage. So we're just adding, yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Like why change it?
Yeah,
50% are easier to compare.
I know. Yeah, I think so.
You're missing all of the unanticipated and moderately low probability events with a statistic like this. It's not robust.
Yeah. And I think, Melvin, wasn't workload where we would actually add the days?
No,
Just
the
the-
number of new items received, I'm guessing. It's like
Oh, right. Number of new items and the percentage. Yeah. He suggested the percentage. And then again, for the card holders, he suggested to put the change in percentage. So we could see how many people are getting new cards every year. And we could look at it as, as Mountain View grows, if they ever do the plan out in North Bay Shore, if we get 20,000 new residents and we're getting 20,000 new cards, that percentage could say, look, this is a workload of I'm getting this many more card holders. That's a lot more people coming to the library using our services. We could use that number to say we've got to increase our materials. We need to increase, this number of staff, number of buildings, if we need a new branch, something like that. And then we tracked, but he said the consultant suggested we do the total hours the study rooms were in use and percent of time booked. So again, the percentages to see how are they being used quite a bit. Maybe we use it to show we need more study rooms and then the bookmobile. We do issue cards at all the bookmobile stops. And our visitors, how many visitors and materials that are circulating on the bookmobile, and programs, because we do offer some programs at some of the stops. And then homebound, we haven't been tracking. We track ourselves, but it hasn't been part of our performance measure. And then this was one I mentioned earlier, community events with library representation, because I mentioned that we've been asked a lot more to participate in citywide events and neighborhood events, community-based organization events. So we want to track that. So, it might tell us if, we need a second bookmobile or, we need more staff to work on the bookmobile because the main has to go out more. So we wanted to definitely track that. It would be a workload that we could use if we needed. And then the monthly email newsletter. And we want to capture the open rate by recipients too. I think a lot of our increase is, I would say anecdotally, is due to our marketing and our social media. We opt everyone into our newsletter. They have to opt out when you get a new library card.
That's what the change. I guess it's only 5% more library cards, so you still need to do some work on top of that.
Yeah.
So I had a question on line 13, which maybe you'll answer it, but you want to hear the question first, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, so when it says within 3 business days, has that been, from the perspective of the people who get the replies, has that been satisfactory to them, or have you had observations that, ideally like in 2 days or 1 day or whatever?
Yeah, I think this was set by the city manager's office, that the expectation that all departments would get back to somebody within 3 days. That's just been the standard practice citywide. I will say we don't get a lot of Ask Mountain View. Public Works gets the most, obviously, streets, anything related. But
Okay.
because of our online, our website, most people go right through our website. So we do track that. But it was the city manager's office wanted this track for all the departments, the SMV. So it will be low for us just because we have our own online system for answering questions, but we get some through Ask Mountain View as well. And then these were added just as informational. They wanted to add at the end of just interesting statistics.
So these are not things you're going to track going
Right.
forward. They're just
No.
like bits that went into the budget document to say, like, look at what all
Yeah.
these things we're doing.
Yes.
That's good.
So it's more just like reference facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun facts. It used to be a separate document in the budget document of fun facts, but now it's at the end of the performance measures. And if you all remember back in March, I remember so vividly, because I remember right outside this door, someone was on the floor and I said, do you want a bench? We don't have any more chairs. But we had 2,500 people when Water Mountain View power went out, and we had power. And so we had this room set up next to all the power outlets, the first floor program room. People were finding outlets. I was like, wow, I didn't know there was a power outlet there. People were finding power outlets that we didn't even know about. So we had every chair out on the floor. So that was a highlight. And then author talks, online author talks are huge. And then programs. These are some of the highlights that we just included. Any other questions or comments, suggestions? So in January is when we usually give you all a 6-month update, January or February. So it'll have this new setup. And so we've had to adjust how we track. We just had a meeting with several staff on how we gather all this for the measurements. And then every year we give a report to the state library that will have some of this on, but we all libraries report to the state library too.
I guess I have one question, which is like, metrics are always tricky because as soon as you put them on, then you get measured on it. And it's like, what made that, like some of this, like the homebound patron one to me was like, why is that a top line that, I mean, it's, homebound clients, right? What was was there a process for like, what's the top line that's for what you track internally? What do you share with the city? Because I just worried like with, if you have 12 top priorities, you have no top priorities. So like, how do you think about
Yeah.
which are really important and which the ones that are less-
Prioritization.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. I know, when we met with and we had several meetings with the consultant and with finance, actually, some staff who were in, I think, I would say, part of it was he wanted to capture workload, especially of, he wanted us, what are your services? What would change? And we were just throwing out, well, we do this, we do this. Oh, you should write homebound. That sounds like a great service. You should have that captured. So, if our population increased heavily for older adults and needed homebound, if we saw, this increase, it was, I think, a way to say, well, how do we increase staff to reach more people? So,
I guess if you look at this kind of like, where do the librarians spend their time?
yeah,
And that's kind of the workload metrics, and that's
Yeah.
when bookmobile stuff, then gives you more ammo when you're saying, going to budget and saying like,
yeah,
we're gonna put more in the Prosser, Baker and Taylor, whatever.
yeah,
'Cause we want more availability for our librarians to do this sort of stuff.
yeah.
So,
And is homebound typically just senior citizens, or can it be like families with young kids who can't get to the library as much, or are there other categories?
There is a criteria, and I'll actually pull up our homebound.
Oh, it's right there, and visit, and then on the right, homebound service.
Oh, there. So long-term
Illness, injury,
mobility.
disability. No.
I imagine that's like disproportionate workload for the staff.
Yeah.
What is the approximate number of people served?
In homebound right now, 66.
10 to 15 right now. Well, one of the goals that we have this year is to increase that number. This has been moved from the customer experience division to the youth division because it's going to be integrated with like the outreach of like the bookmobile and homebound. Because we go mostly to assisted living facilities. So let's say, why are we not getting more people like availing the service rather than just 5 or 10 in this particular facility?
Part of our goal is to get the word out that we have this service that for the people who would need it, kind of like we're doing with the Career Online High School stipend. Is our biggest is getting the word out to all these organizations to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
The library will be closed in 30 minutes.
Any other questions on the? And then you got the brochure, the year in review. I won't go through, but librarian Katie put it together, did a great job. I shared this with staff. I shared it with the city council on Friday. In their monthly, but lots of great info. I hope you all enjoyed all the photos of staff when you see it in picture form, and especially capturing some of the comments from customers and the stats. The stats are pulled from measures, but it just showed how busy we were and staff are doing. If anyone has any questions.
I thought it was a good mix of content.
Oh, yeah, it's
I
great.
really liked it from that perspective.
I think that's the end of this agenda item, unless anyone has other questions. And if things come up, feel free to email me for sure. And
There's nobody on the line, right? Do I have to ask for public comments?
Well, in person too.
Do you have any comments you'd like to add?
No, it's very interesting. I saw this outside and I was like, oh, let's see what happens. I wonder what happens in this meeting.
Okay, and there's no action item, so we can move on to the library director. Giving us a report. No.
Well, as I mentioned, the report, Charles, and then we had Tandy start today. Our Career Success Allowance Program is moving along. We have two, maybe three. We have two who should have received checks, their first monthly stipend a few days ago. So we're excited about that. And we've been getting the word out. We tabled at the National Night Out, the PD and Fire event a couple weeks ago, and we had a few people stop at our table and asked about the Career Online Stipend Program. And actually, Melvin and I were over there and some of the staff and directed them to our website. She was on her phone and was doing the application right there. So we're hoping to get more people interested in that. It's a great program. And then I brought a show and tell. It's in here. I received this and I was like, what is coming from the U.S. House of Representatives? This looks really official. And then I saw it was Anna Eshoo and the picture is in here, but I wanted to pass it around because she's amazing. And I'm so bummed she's retiring from her position as Congresswoman. But she sent us this. One of her aides saw it in the Mountain View Voice, I think, and she thought it was an excellent program and sent us this. So I'll just pass that around so you can see it. Our city communications office asked us if they could house this over at City Hall in one of the display cases for a few months. And I said, absolutely. So it'll be, I said, I need to show it to the board first. And then tomorrow we can give it to you guys. But I wanted to show the board first. Yeah, she is such an advocate of libraries and has always just been such a supporter and advocate of libraries. So yeah, it was a wonderful surprise and very, very nice. So, and then just we wanted to share some of the other programs, and the state parks passes are going through the end of 2025. So we'll have the state park passes for another year and a half. So that's great. And then just shared some of the compliments we've gotten from customers in our program. So
The magic show, the most highly attended outdoor event.
That's a good question. The magic show, I don't know if we know the numbers offhand. Was it in
395.
395?
It's bigger than any of the other ones. That's good.
I'll have to ask because the magic show was before the dance party and I was there the whole time dancing. I went home and said, I need to take a shower. And my husband said, you work in a library. I said, I just danced for an hour at the summer dance party. It was very fun. And the last I got the number was like at 350 some. So we'll see once at next month's if that one beat the magic show. But the magic show was definitely one of the highest for the summer for sure.
But it's tricky because the magician made over 100 people disappear.
So 400. He was really good too, the magician. So
Saw him last year, but not this year.
unless anyone has questions.
Question, comments?
Just vaguely here, how do you count the number of people that attempt?
Yeah, it's very tricky.
Like, I've been to events inside and they have the QR code, but for people to fill out the surveys, but I do not think everyone who attends scans the QR code, right?
No, so we have little elves. No, I'm kidding. The elves are the librarians and they actually have a clicker.
The walk
and-
around with the clicker and
Yeah, the outdoor events are really hard to count, but they're doing it. And the room events are easier because they usually capture them when you come in, but the outdoor ones are definitely tricky.
they're probably tricky, but I do think that they do try to do a good job of like circulating,
Yeah,
find new people who.
yeah. Yeah, they're always watching. There's usually one staff that's out there counting and seeing when new people.
Is that actually also how you count people who attend, like come into the library every day?
No, so here's a fun fact, because a lot of people don't know it, that there's gates at the doors and it has a little clicker. So if a kid is having fun and goes, it's increasing our usage, but yeah, so when you come in, it'll
Leave and subtract.
yeah, there's a little number you can read on the side, but yeah.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. What do we have on tap for September?
So September there's a week in September that's band book week. So I'm putting together a band book presentation. Right now it's very long, so I'm going to try to condense. There's a lot of information. It's very interesting, the history part of it going back hundreds of years. So that will be the presentation part of September. And then I did want to ask, I know October is typically when friends come and give a presentation. They have a new president, so at their next September meeting, I'll ask if they're able to come, if she is or somebody else can come to the October meeting. And then the celebration of service is, have you all gotten anything from the celebration yet?
So
I think it's not official yet, but it'll be September or October is typically when that is. I think they're probably still determining the date. So that's, I put that on the calendar for September. Hopefully it's not the same night as our meeting, but I think they schedule it where there isn't a board commission meeting. And then I did want to ask, and you don't have to decide now, but the December meeting date is the night of the tree lighting. And the tree lighting at City Hall, the whole big festivity, I believe, starts at 5:30 and we're scheduled for 7 because it was in the community services brochure.
sorry, that was December what again?
December 9th. And I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it was in the brochure and I'm gonna pull it up real quick just to triple check. I go through the recreation brochure to put down dates for anything.
Yeah, so I attended the tree lighting last time around and I'd be fine with it. just speaking for me, I'd be fine with both being on the same day. I'd
Okay,
mind that.
okay.
Keep in mind parking.
True. No,
Early.
I mean, get here early, find good parking. True. But I just commitments wise, I don't mind both being on the same day.
The handbooks in September, Friends of Mountain View Library in October. I guess we'll figure out December when we get that.
Yeah, in December, we're hoping to have a presentation on using data for determining local service needs. Renee mentioned it. That's how she got a lot of the statistics for the bookmobile and stops and determining. It's a new service the state library providing public libraries. And so she was going to come talk about a little bit in more detail about that in December.
Questions, comments? Once. Twice. This meeting is adjourned at 8:41 p.m. The next library board meeting will be held on Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m.